Hi guys, Brett here from Hearns Hobbies, and today I'd like to take a look at and discuss the differences between two very popular Tamiya chassis. The TT-01 and the TT-02. Now most of you know that these have been around for quite some time. Here's a TT-02 and here's an example of the TT-01. Now they're very popular platforms. They are used from the Euro racing trucks, scale models, some rally spec cars even. So they're really popular with scale model builders and RC people in general. Many people have had a TT series car as their first RC car, and for very good reason. They perform really well, and they're really well priced, and they also have heaps of scope for improvements, upgrades and options. So let's have a look at some of the differences between the TT-01 and the TT-02. Okay, so we'll start off with the TT-01. Here we have an example of a DTM car that I really like the look of. We painted this one up. Not exactly box art, I've gone for a different color combination on the bodywork, but still keeping it very true to the box. Now TT-01s generally come with the body partially cut. They don't have a kind of shock absorber, if you will, more of a spring retainer or friction damper, so they can tend to bounce and pogo, but that's fine, and that makes them really nice and easy to build. TT-01s, believe it or not, they've first come out in 2003, so quite a timely kit now, but they still get released. Okay, so I'm going to take the body off here. I believe that this body set came out on TA02, maybe TLO. Here we go. Beautiful body set there, really scale. Now, let's have a look at the TT-01. So, a couple of the design features that make it pretty special. Has a top deck, really good. Keeps the chassis really firm and really tight and very durable. These things are really hard to break. As far as slop goes in the steering, like yeah, it's got some, but you know what? I think that's more than acceptable for a kit of its age. This one here has been raced a few times now. Slop on the back, yeah, it's not too bad, but you can see the way that the top arms and the lower arms are designed. They have a really wide pivot and makes them really quite rigid. So they're not very rubbery, which is great for control. Now I did mention before about the spring retainers, the friction dampers. So it's literally just something that you click together, you push it together, rotate it 90 degrees, and that is assembled, the spring retainer. And I really like that in the entry-level kits because shock absorbers and damper units can be quite confronting and intimidating. The electrics package I've got in here is a standard 540 torque tune motor that come with the kit. I've got a pretty basic 9 steps NSRC 001 speed controller. I've got the highest 550T servo in there with metal gears and a Futaba receiver, so I can pair that up with my gear. So yeah, so that is a look at, and you can see the architecture, how old the chassis is that it still has holes for nickel metal hydride batteries that we used to race with. So we would have used a side-by-side or stick pack configuration. And it does actually have rounded webbings here. So competition or square pack lipos actually won't go straight into a TT-01. You do have to modify them. However, most spec racing classes, at least here in Australia, all stipulate that you've got to have a stick style lipo battery, and they fit straight in, no worries at all. Really good. Okay, so that's the TT-01. Now let's jump in and have a look at the TT-02. Here we got another Mercedes. Completely different model. This body here is much later release. I believe this is a brand new model for Tamiya at the time. This one came out in 2021. Yeah, it even has really nice three-dimensional light buckets, which is a really nice feature on some of the TT-02 bodies, front and rear. So they actually glue in from the back. Really gives it that really nice, like I said, three-dimensional and textured finish. Again, for this car, I went for pretty much box art. So we'll take the body off and have a look at TT-02. The interesting thing about TT-02 came in the first model came in 2013. So 10 years after the TT-01. TT-01 2003, TT-02 2013. So in 10 years, what did they do? Well, to be honest, they've just sort of taken material out. So we've got a big difference here. We've got no top deck on the front. So the chassis does provide more flex, a little bit more traction, okay, especially when you use the standard spring retaining damper units. Again, it has the same damper units, which is really nice and easy to build. And what I said before about the TT-01, about the wide pivot points, they've actually gone to a much narrower pivot point here. So the suspension, although it's not quite as rigid, does have a lot of give in it. So, and it probably has, the TT-02 would have more slop or more free play out of the box than the TT-01. You can see here the way that this wheel's moving around, that's all free play. Whereas the TT-01 doesn't have nearly half that. So a couple of design features there. And I said about the battery in the TT-01, how it couldn't take a square pack. The TT-02, they've amended that. So a competition style square pack LiPo battery will slip straight into a TTO platform. Again, this model here has come with a 540 Tamiya torque tuned motor, which is really good. And again, I've got the same running package as the TT-01, the NSRC 001 speed controller, a Hearns 550T metal gear servo, and a Futaba receiver. Really a good, competent little car. Okay, now you can see here on the two screens the differences. So at the top of your screen we've got the TT-02. The lower of your screen is a TT-01. There we go. You can see what I was talking about. No top deck on the TT-02. The TT-01 definitely does. The pivot point here for the top A-arms is quite narrow. On the TT-01 it's really quite wide. So that really does give you a lot of strength. So yeah, so all in all, both cars perform very well. They're very even on track. They're really, with the current motor configuration that's in these out of the kit, they perform nearly exactly the same. The gearing is almost identical with the standard gears that come in the kit, and the performance, like I said, is like for like. So it's really good. The body kits fit most of the main cars, 190mm touring cars, so if you did want to upgrade or put any other body kit on there, you can straight away, and they have the standard hex fitting wheels. So that is a quick rundown of the Tamiya TT-01 and the TT-02, some of the differences between them, and I really recommend that you do yourself a favor and build one of these kits. So I'm Brett from Hearns, and thanks for taking a look with me at the Tamiya TT-01 versus the TT-02.